and let's get the meeting started. Thank you very much. Okay. Sorry, Hannah.
Yes, hi, I'm Hannah Kessler on the Planning Commission.
Mickey.
Hi, my name is Mickey and I'm also from Planning Commission. Thank you all for joining.
Megan.
Hi, I'm hiding back here. Megan Cope, nice to meet you.
All right. Did I miss any planning commission members? And then staff, Emily and Matt. Probably know most people, but.
Matt Boulanger, planning director. Emily just stepped out. She's actually zooming in from her office because we're at capacity in the room.
Oh, see, it's good I'm not there. That's great. Okay. So thank you all so much for coming. I appreciate it. Let me just get over to my other screen. I guess I would like to, unless there's a public comment that's not related to the multimodal study, we're going to hand it over to the folks to present the study. Any other public comment before we do that? All right. Take it away. Scoping study.
All right. Oh, it's your fine. You're totally fine. There we go.
Ask questions.
All right. Is that me kicking it off, or Melinda, do you want to say anything first?
Sure, so we've been working with the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission and Du Bois and King on kind of revamping a scoping study for a shared use path along Williston Road from Half Corners to the village. There was a scoping study that was done in 2014, but 11 years later, it really needs a refresh. So we've been taking a fresh look at that. And in December, we had a initial public meeting to hear folks, I don't know, ideas and concerns and yeah, just thoughts about a multimodal path along Route 2. And then since that, a survey was also put out to the public to gather more ideas and feedback. And then Emily and Kate from Du Bois and King developed some alternatives, which we're going to look at tonight.
Thanks, Melinda. Hi, I'm Emily Lewis. I'm a landscape architect and planner with Du Bois and King. I'm joined by my colleague, Kate Campbell. And then we have another team member who's not here with us tonight, Jenny Austin, transportation engineer, as well as Marshall Distal and Christine Ford with the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission. So who in this room was there in December, whenever was it, for that first meeting?
Yeah, probably.
Just a few people. Okay, great. So we'll do a brief review. So we're looking at alternatives to improve the pedestrian and cyclist connectivity, as Melinda said, between Taft Corners and the village, so about 2 miles. There has been an addition of a bike lane since that 2014 study she referenced. But it is still not a great option for people who are less experienced or for pedestrians. Though we do know that people do walk along there and run along there, despite the high traffic speed and lack of dedicated pedestrian facilities. So we're specifically looking at options to serve, a variety of multimodal user groups, to try to have it as diverse of a, be able to provide for as diverse a population as we can. So we'll look at a few of the alternatives that we've come up with. We'll get feedback from you all. We'll likely put out another public survey to get additional feedback. And then in conjunction with the project team and the select board, select a preferred alternative, which may be one of the options you see tonight, maybe a combination or a modified version of that. And then we'll refine that a little bit and then put that into a final report to present to the town. Yes,
Can you explain the blue line? What is the legend for the blue line?
that is the project area that we are looking
So
at.
it's not the path.
No, this is just the project area.
Oh, so you're just defining where,
Yep, just showing where we're going from Tech Corners over here into the village.
okay, so it's anywhere inside that blue demarcation?
I mean, generally, we're looking, primarily right along Williston Road. It's just showing folks where the area that we're looking at.
Could be on either side of the road.
Yep, that's where we're gonna get into.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes.
When you say multimodal, what do you include in that and what do you exclude from that? So we know what we're dealing with as we move forward.
Sure, so multimodal would include pedestrians, so anyone walking, running, bicyclists, assisted mobility devices, rollerbladers, so pretty much anything that's non-motorized.
Okay, what about an electric bike?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yep, that would certainly,
and can you
Being
tell us the left and right extent of that diagram up there? Is that the left part?
yep,
Cool.
so this is, so we're going, right now, this is showing just right at Route 2A. And then going the other
Oh, I
direction.
see, that's Taft's Corners on the
That's
left.
task corners
Okay.
on the left, and then we're right about down here
Okay,
this evening. So we'll get more specific as we continue along.
thank you.
So we just want to clarify a little bit, what is a scoping study? What do we mean when we say that? So a scoping study is a review that it investigates a specific facility or locations to achieve a goal. So such as looking at connectivity between two places, adding in different, it can add sidewalks, it can add paths, it can look at intersections. So it looks at alternative ideas with public input and provides some estimated costs to allow community to budget or determine what they may want to do in the future. It's simply a recommendation. It doesn't mandate any further action, but it gives municipality the information that they need to determine if they want to move forward into construction documents and construction. So we kicked this project off back in October, doing a review of that corridor. Did the public survey and that initial public meeting in December as well. And then since then, over the winter, we've been working on these different alternatives. Tonight, we're having that alternatives presentation. As I mentioned, then we will go and refine to a preferred alternative, and then present that final recommendation to the select board in the form of a report that would then be available to the public. And then like I said, it would be up to the select board and the town to determine how they would like to move forward with any recommendations. All right, Kate, can you talk about the project area a little bit more?
Sure. Thank you. So the map that we've got in front of folks right now is a general overview of the project area where we've called out the existing conditions of the area as they pertain to non-motorized transportation. So everything you see highlighted in yellow are the existing sidewalks. And of course, we have in red is the Cross Vermont Trail, which is a cycling route that of course extends beyond the project area and is quite long, but folks do use it to move throughout the area.
Is there anyone who's unfamiliar with the Cross Vermont Trail? You can expand upon that if needed. Okay, great, thank you.
And so as
It might be worth pointing out that it follows the rec path through the village and around the schools.
Yes,
Yes, it follows quite a bit of the rec path and then moves back through some of these neighborhoods until it comes back out here over in Taft Corners.
and what on this map we want to sort of draw folks' attention to is a few of the key facilities along this area. So we're talking about, say, the Allenbrook School, but also the library and the Williston Central School, as well as the municipal buildings, including the one we're in right now. And also access to jobs and shopping over here in Taft's Corners. And then additionally, in the middle of all of that, there are several neighborhoods, which we can see throughout, including the ones off of Selfridge Road. And so there's a lot of people living in this area, as well as lots of destinations in this area. But if we look here, in this section, this white line is Williston Road or Route, which is also Route 2. And we can see that there are currently no sidewalks in this area. And so it's this area in particular, that drew a lot of our attention, because it's this road that you could use to ostensibly connect all of these neighborhoods and these municipal and educational resources to Taft Corners and areas of Williston beyond. But at the moment, there are very limited pedestrian or cyclist infrastructure in there. So to address that, and Emily's gonna.
Keep going.
Okay, all right. So we're gonna start in the westernmost edge of the project area, where you can see we have this pretty wide multi-use path right here that's along the south side of Route 2. It does terminate pretty quickly.
So essentially, this is where we're looking at this project to pick up at the western, or I guess the western edge of our project area is where is the eastern terminus of the existing path system. So picking up here and then moving east to get into the village.
It might be helpful to point out that although the satellite view is old, that's Cottonwood on the bottom. And the Taft Corners Shopping Center, what's it called, on the top?
Taft Farm.
Taft Farm
Yeah.
Shopping Center on the top. We're
So the
dominating.
retention pond is to the right of this, is that?
Yeah, you can see it right.
That's the retention pond for Cottonwood Crossing, which now has a bank and a lot of other things.
Yeah.
So that's where our project area would start on the on its western edge. And as we continue to move east along Route 2, we'll see the fire station right here. And we'll also see part of the extent of that bike lane that was put in a couple of years ago. But this is where the road also does start to get a little bit more, a little bit further away from the stores. Cars start to move a little bit faster. The road starts to get a little bit more precarious. We've got these nice wide shoulders and good lines of sight. And that continues undisturbed for a long stretch. On both the north and south side of the road, there's some undeveloped areas. There are some wetlands in that area, potentially more than are mapped.
And then the shoulders do start to get narrower
And things
along here as
And they
well.
do have poison parsnip leaning in the summer and gravel on them in the spring.
Yeah.
There's obstacles. And we also have a handful of residences as well. Moving further to the east, we start to get more residences, including the ones off of Timothy Way and Southbridge Road.
Yeah, and we heard in the survey and in the first public meeting, a lot of concern about access and crossings at these two intersections, both from drivers and from pedestrians as well. That it can be kind of scary and dangerous, even in a car, to try to do that, let alone on foot or on bike.
Yeah, and then this area is also, worth mentioning that you're at the point where that large hill that's by the church ends and starts to even out. So cars that are traveling west are picked up speed because they've gone, have potentially picked up speed because they've gone downhill. And then, of course, you have these two neighborhoods that let out right in this area where folks might be trying to potentially cross the road. And then we continue to move up and then, although from the orthograph, and although from our bird's eye image, it looks a little flat here, it's actually quite a steep section of road where we have a few private residences to the south, and then we have a property owned by the church to the north.
Is there anyone from the church here tonight? Is there anyone from the association on the south? Yes, excellent, thank you for coming.
And we can actually see, I believe the beginning or the northern part of the extent of that land right here on the south side of the road.
There's one moment, is that where the former passing lane used to be on US two?
Yes, that's
Which
correct.
I'm not opposing that it's gone. I knew where I was.
Yeah, so in this section of Route 2, the shoulders, because of that, are quite a bit wider. So the bike lane that has been put in is quite a bit wider there. It's kind of the widest section of it in this whole
Before
route.
it shrinks down to being terrifying.
Yes, exactly.
Whereabouts on this is that hill that's right by the farmhouse that's on the south side? There's a hill before you get to being able to go into the residences of Southridge.
It's just out of sight to the left.
Yeah,
It's in the last slide.
That's the most dangerous part right there.
Mhm.
In a car, no matter which way you're
Go
coming,
to the previous
you
slide.
cannot see what's on the other side. And I've seen
Yeah.
people biking there.
There's that farm that's on the
Yeah.
south side
Okay.
Got it,
Yeah,
okay.
and a long driveway on the north side.
yeah.
Mhm.
And then, as we start to move a little bit further east in the project area and we pass by, the church, we see more residences, but also the beginning of the existing sidewalks in this project area. So there's, generally speaking, in this area, they're on both the north and south side of the road, which is, really effective for folks who are trying to move around. And these sidewalks are also connecting people to, facilities such as the library or the school or the town offices that we're in. But there is, and so here we are.
You might want to point out that
Mhm.
the commons, which has been on the south side where we've just been here, crossing to Old Stage Road,
Mhm.
there's no help crossing,
Hmm.
and there's no sidewalk on the south side further to the west. So
Yes,
that's a difficult.
That's
point
one
for
of our
pedestrians.
comments to make tonight.
That's a
Yeah.
difficult place for pedestrians.
Is it at this point?
Yeah.
Old
Yes,
Stage Road,
yes,
Town
Tower
Square.
Island, yes.
Yes.
And the
Yeah.
Right
commons
where
is
your
that development.
cursor is as well,
Yeah.
is a
Yes.
spot where when there's somebody making a left onto Old Stage Road, people cut off to the right, so that's an area where there's gotta be a huge buffer for other
Yeah.
users.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because that definitely was the other intersection area that we heard a lot of feedback about and a lot of concern.
Can I just make a comment, since we're looking at the intersection? I know we got a lot of feedback from our community. Is there a possibility of putting like a four-way stop at that intersection?
Those can certainly be some recommendations that we make. This study isn't extensive enough to really explore in depth some of those intersection improvements, but we definitely recommend further study at those intersections for sure, and utilizing all the feedback we've heard to justify that.
Good.
How much variance from the road do you have?
Variance in,
How big is the right of way? Right
oh,
away.
how why is the right of way?
Yeah.
I think it's generally a 4 rod right of way, so about 66 feet along the majority of the road. Do you know, does it vary as you get closer into the village?
Not sure.
And that's the full width, right?
Yeah.
Both sides.
33 feet from the center line.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
okay,
it's not
thank you, that sounds-
66 from the edge of the road.
Right, sorry.
Doesn't sound right.
Well, no, yeah, from edge to edge, yes,
So the
33
intent would
feet.
be to push it back a certain amount of feet to stay away from the courts, or?
We'll get into that as we start moving
Okay.
through the alternatives, thank you. So, let's just jump right into this then. Okay, so we've looked at the main alternatives we're looking at are primarily along the north side of the road and along the south side of the road with a little bit of deviation there. So generally looking at, could we stay somewhat parallel to the road? Potentially as you're moving up the hill, getting up closer to the church, is that an area that you can move, that might be a possibility to move outside of the right of way? And, if there could be an agreement with private property owners to do that, so to alleviate some of that, the steepness of that path to make it easier for folks to traverse it. So, so here's an example of kind of what generally what the options would look like. So I think to answer your question, sir, generally, if you have your travel lane, shoulder 3 to 4 feet, a buffer, approximately 5 to 8 feet, and then 10-foot shared use path. And we've heard that path would need to be a minimum of 10 feet to allow for plowing in the winter. Correct.
Pickup truck plowing.
Pickup truck plowing.
Clarify that, please. Is that 10-foot paved or 10-foot right of way with
10
total right of ways?
That would be the 10-foot paved path.
So what would be the width of the right of way for something like that?
18 feet from the edge of the.
Isn't this showing it in the right of way?
This is we're generally showing it within the right of way. This is if you were to separate from the road, just showing it off of there. So we're gonna get starting a little bit closer here. So here we are at Taft Corners. The Cottonwood is just over here. Here's the end of that existing path. So looking, alternative A is the blue, it follows along the north side of the road. Again, generally, alongside the road, it would be, a minimum. So you'd have your travel lane, your 3 to 4 foot shoulder, approximately a 5-foot buffer, and then your 10-foot, path. So to make sure that there is a buffer between the users of the path and the cars, rather than having it, directly next to it.
Can I ask you a quick question about that buffer?
Yeah.
In the prior slide that you showed there was an illustration of a tall skinny tree, in that buffer. Is that hopefully a requirement that there be things that block cars from actually, using the buffer when they shouldn't be?
That would, I think, have to be coordinated with V-Trans to see what they would permit within that buffer. Would be great if you could have trees or landscaping or something, at a minimum, perhaps, there could be, guardrail or some other kind of buffer, and, yeah.
Anything, I think if we've seen in the
Sure.
2A study yesterday, the meeting yesterday, I don't know how many people attended that, for the construction for that. Everybody was pretty much saying people don't stop at the red lights, they don't, they don't do these things, so you can't rely on enforcement cycles that go up and down. You have to put physical protection in, and so I think that anything, whether it's mullet or whatever.
Yeah.
And if I could foreshadow another comment, when you talk about a 5 to 7 foot buffer, that's nowhere near within where V-Trans snowplows throw the snow. Or when they go back with a wing later, they will fill that with snow all winter. And so I just want to say a 5 to 7 foot buffer looks nice on a diagram, but doesn't function for pedestrian use in the winter.
Yeah.
We have that problem with our sidewalks in the village.
How far do they push that snow out?
Well,
fast?
Yeah, if they're going 40 miles an hour, it's going 20 feet, I think, but then they come by with a wing if it's built up too much and they push it again.
Okay, good to know, thank you.
I don't know what the answer is, but it's just to keep in mind.
Absolutely, yeah, thank you for that. So where you kind of see, a little bit of variation, it's not exactly parallel to the road. That's where we are looking at some of the slopes there, and trying to determine, where where you could build a path that requires the, primarily within the right of way, but requires the least amount of grading adjustment. And we've noted here, some of these areas, right here has a really steep cross slope. Called out some of the areas where, there would be some crossings needed. So if you went with the orange, the alternative B, wanting to provide some kind of crossing so that folks coming down Talcott Road would be able to cross over and get onto the path. Acknowledging that this is not just an end-to-end path, people are going to be wanting to get on it at various points. Kate, do you want to talk a little bit about where this bumps out?
Sure. So, to as part of tonight's meeting, we wanted to we're showing multiple different what we call alternatives, and so as part of that, we're showing you right here on the south side of the road. There's an orange path which we're calling B, and then as an alternative to that, we're calling a lighter orange path that we're calling B2. And so this one, the B2, is still staying on publicly owned land, but it's further away from the road. So it's an option that would be a little bit further from the road. It'd be, you'd add a little bit more length to it, but it's one of our alternatives. And so we can sort of see it starting on this slide and then it continues over here.
So some of the feedback that we heard in December was that, wouldn't it be nice if this wasn't just a purely functional path, but it could be an experience as well. So where possible, could you pull it a little bit further off the road to really make it, enjoyable and not just, close to that noise and speed of the traffic.
And so part of this process of designing these alternatives was to look for opportunities where we could pull the path even further away from Route 2 to give it more separation from the road. And this being one of those opportunities where you could do that without going onto private property.
So, Kate, can I just ask for clarification? So what's determining where that is the right of way?
So for B2 is actually outside the roads right away, but the land parcel that's adjacent to the road is publicly owned.
Okay.
So
it's not like a topographic feature, it's just kind of a land ownership feature.
This one in particular, yes.
That's the Vermont gas pump station there.
Yeah.
And that funny jog there on the blue option, is that just a glitch, or that switch back there?
That's because of the topography in the area.
There's
a gully there.
Yeah, so note that, kind of, these are still highly conceptual. So we're trying to look at, where, like we said before, where you might want to adjust the path to minimize the grading that's needed to be done, but the real details of that would have to be done further in the next stage of design.
Do you want more questions to be held?
I'm happy to go and talk about them now.
Big one on the previous slide, which is here we're away from the thing and here we're away from, but you go next to the road where that culvert is for a brook that goes and joins the Allen Brook coming from the south. And so that's why.
On the south side here?
Yes, it's to the west of Talcott Road there.
Okay.
See it where Allen Brook is, it goes to Allen Brook, but right about your pointer is, there's a culvert there, which I'm assuming is why you went back closer to the road at that intersection. No, I don't know. I was just gonna ask, are you assuming you can have your own culvert for the rec path, the multi-use path?
So our transportation engineer, we passed these off to her, and when she was considering the opinion of probable cost for each of these, part of that was having to do any adjustments to any culverts in the area that these paths cross. Because you're right, there are several culverts in this area that these paths would have to cross over. So in places like that, in places like B, for example, where it might be inevitable, that was then rolled into her opinion of probable construction.
So 2B that comes further away from the road is great. If it could continue west at that distance from the road, it would be great, but I realize that means adding a culvert.
Yeah.
Hi guys, I don't know if you can see my hand. I'm sorry, my video has mysteriously stopped working, but I'm curious if you guys have ranked them in A, B, C because those are the order you're recommending them in,
There's no reason for the letters right now.
Mostly north to south.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's just a way to name them right now. Right now, we don't have any preferential ranking that we've included in this.
Can I ask you a question? What's the disadvantage of being further away from the road? Because that seems like it's the preferred solution.
Disadvantage could be additional length included there.
Incremental cost.
So some costs, some other things that we would recommend be done prior to any design is wetland survey along this entire area.
Oh.
So environment, you know, we've looked at that information at a desktop level, so looking at the Vermont ANR Natural Resource Atlas. But there's only so much that you can determine from looking at that.
I see.
So there could be other environmental considerations that may impact the location.
And this section we're looking at here is owned by the state, and the town owns the part to the west of the Cass place. And we've moved the utilities back from the road in preparation for the certified way that didn't happen in that section. So we've already, the town or utilities are already moved back there. Just information.
Yeah, what is your name?
Chapin.
Chapin, I remember you from the last meeting.
Oh, I might have spoken up, I'm sorry.
No, but Chapin missed introductions. He's also a planning commission member.
Oh, great. Yeah, you obviously know a lot what you're talking about, so. You know, one of the things we've noted here is there would likely be a bridge needed in this area. This side up here, we think it's likely that you could stay close enough to the road that you wouldn't need one here, but this is an area that I think would need further environmental investigation to really be able to make a determination. And Jabin, I see you nodding with that.
Yeah,
Sound accurate.
and also that one crosses in front of the fire station, which is not the best place to have a multi-use path.
So then continuing to move east, you still have, getting into a steeper grade along here. Again, at Timothy Way, we're looking at, depending on which route, which side of the road, could necessitate a crossing, and then similarly over here at Southridge, some kind of crossing needed. The right of way does appear to get narrower in this area. So it's possible that there would need to be some expanded right of way easement or something to be able to continue along here. There are a few areas of that we have noted, again, even on the other side, steep cross slopes as well.
Is that specifically on the south side, the right of way issue?
I believe on both sides.
So comment about that particular Jim McCullough, that Monastery Hill, we can put a name to it, that's what it is.
Okay, thank you.
And it's great that we do now and have a greatly expanded bike lane on each side on the way down that hill, except that for the next 1,000 years, all that pavement is gonna have to be maintained. And if Monastery Hill was brought down to 11 feet on each side of the double yellow line, and then the path went in there, I bet you don't have a right-of-way issue.
I think you may be right, because since this is where the bike lane is, I'm not quite sure where our engineer was.
Jim was
pulling off.
talking about
The
the
next
next section
to the
along
right.
to the east.
Okay,
So Jim, this is still at the bottom of that hill. On the
That's Southridge
where
on the top.
Southridge
Oh,
comes
here you
in.
go.
well, we have it on the same side as well, but
Right,
we will take another look at that and try to confirm where we were doing that offset from, if we were doing it from the edge of the pavement there, knowing that the pavement is wider in that area, or if it was from looking at the edge of the travel lane.
I swore never to disagree with Jim McCullough, but I do have to say, I go down that hill pretty fast on my bike. Now that there's a good bike lane and good separation. I would not want to be going that fast down the rec path with a toddler coming up on a training wheels on a 10-foot wide path. And so I almost feel as though in that area, we need two things. We need the place for pedestrians and recreational bicyclists and still maintain the bike lane, at least on the downhill side,
Yeah.
for at least on one side, the downhill side for bikes that are through bikers.
Well, and then this is where we get into some of those other off-road alternatives. So for that very reason, that grade and that speed, we're looking at, would it be possible to pull it off the road here? Have it meandering a little bit more so that you have a more gradual grade going up. This could only be done, with coordination with the church. And then similarly on the south side, and remind me the name of the
commons.
With the commons. And then similarly, if you did something like that on the south side with agreement from the commons to be able to pull it off the road, have it be a little bit more meandering so that you don't have it as steep the entire way. Something we try to look at is ADA accessibility. And while these types of paths aren't required to be that, to meet those requirements, we want to keep that in mind to try to provide a path and an option that is most accessible to most people. Again, anything that would be done on private property would have to be with the agreement of those property owners. And so just because we are showing them here does not mean that they would move forward. So we want to be very clear about that.
Could you clarify that for me? When you go into private property, is there actual property deeded to whoever owns this path? Or is it a right of way that's legally provided on the part of the owners? What's the mechanism for that?
How has that been done in Williston so far with some of the other rec path areas?
Typically, it's usually a deeded easement to the town.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Deeded easement to
Easement
the
for the
town.
town, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, it would be maintained by the town. So then here's where on the north side, you meet back with the existing sidewalk.
What is this where you've got the blue line going on? Is that the church?
Yeah.
This is the Immaculate Heart Catholic Church.
Okay.
So looking at going
Going
off there. We do know, we have noted that the sidewalk along here is not in great shape.
All 26 inches of it.
So definitely the character of the road starts to change, when you hit Tower Lane. And you start to have buildings closer to the road, you start to have sidewalks, you theoretically start to have slower traffic.
Can I make a brief comment on that?
Yes,
As a lover of going back into the woods, I love the idea of the link behind the church, but my concern about it would be if there is also a nice sidewalk, whatever its condition, that cuts that entire meander off, it's gonna be overwhelmingly tempting to people to stay simply on the straight and narrow, and somebody's gonna get hit. Because there's not enough room really there for that, that jammed right up against the road that's sharp curve in the highway. It really, it's almost like an attractive nuisance. To distract people from the intended route, which is the longer one.
So right
I
now,
would remove that piece of bike path that were at me in front of the church, if you wanted to go with the meander.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's
Yes, absolutely.
1A and 1B, the two bluish.
Yep, so the dark blue is the option, basically turning the bike path or instead of having a bike path, having the shared use path adjacent to the road versus the other option is having it come across here and then meets up with this yellow existing
The little
sidewalk.
zigzag on 2B is nothing, that's not gonna cause any use from anybody. But the one around the church, it's probably 150, 200 yards at least, and plus there'll be some elevation gain and loss.
Speaking of that southernmost zigzag, I just wonder if are we saying that if that option is chosen, there's no truck plowing possible, because that looks like a super tight turn.
That would have to be, we can certainly adjust it in here, because like I said, this is very conceptual.
Okay.
That is something that that would need to be kept in mind, is that any turns or switchbacks or anything would have to be at a radius that can accommodate.
All right, so we're not
that
giving
truck
up truck plowing, but
No.
liking the lowest of the four
Yeah.
options there, okay.
Curve
I will
on
say,
the,
And I have a question to
Yes.
put into from the comments.
Yes.
Okay, so either one of these paths, the A or B, the orange and the light orange and dark orange, are gonna pass fairly close behind several of our units.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering what recommendations you're making for screening.
Mm.
For example, I know in some cases fences have been put up, evergreens. I'm just wondering what your recommendations would be. You may not have an answer for that right now, but.
Right, I don't have an answer for that right now. That's a really good point to bring up, and if that were I think if that were to be an alternative that were to move forward, we would recommend coordinating with the Commons to determine what those people would most like to see back there. Because some people would prefer to have a privacy fence, some people would just like additional landscaping. So I think we would recommend coordinating directly with those residents.
one final comment, this time will be silent. Middle Run neighborhood where I live never had plowing sidewalks in the winter. And this year, for the first time, the town did it with the new plow that they added. And they did it gloriously. And the different distance from the road, which is a wide road and moves traffic pretty good speed. And the sidewalk, I would guess is no more than 7 or 8 feet. The sidewalk, of course, had to be cleared after major snowfalls, but there was no problem with mountains. Accumulation of snow falling down onto it. And I was one of the people who stupidly always watch out what you say. You don't know until you discover what you know. That it would never work. It worked great. And I'm very grateful for it.
on a secondary road, it would,
Yeah.
because the plow is moving slowly, yeah.
Well, boy, it goes by pretty fast sometimes. Certainly at least 25 or 30. maybe
Are you
not
talking about
sideways.
Mountain View Road?
No, Meadow Run Road. Which is
Oh,
the Meadow Run.
Because Mountain View Road has a path next to it, and I haven't noticed that the snow is pushed onto that path.
Yeah, that's quite a ways in too. That's really nice. It's a big grassy area between the road. I have a question for you. For the commons. I know that some of the neighborhoods, when any kind of work is going to be done and there needs to be an easement for a path, some of the neighborhoods actually require that 100% of the people in that neighborhood agree to it. And I know that that's been an issue. I mean, it's been accommodated eventually, but it has been an issue when we were doing the big block. We were coming around, one of the neighborhoods really had a hard time getting that 100%. So I don't know whether the Commons might have that part of their plan, you know, the options for.
Head shaking.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that would certainly be something else to explore with the Commons, you know, what are, you know, some of the requirements or concessions or what have you, doing anything on that
Right,
property.
we've gotten some feedback from the community. There was, I think, one negative comment. The rest have been very enthusiastic about having a path. So
that one could stop it if it's 100%.
we would.
I doubt it.
Yeah.
So Kate, do you want to talk about the last two options here?
Sure. So what we've shown folks so far has been our our alternatives A and alternatives B, which have been along that gap in the Route 2 corridor that we looked at the beginning where there just is no existing infrastructure. And these last two alternatives don't, particularly this first one, don't directly connect the village of Williston, the Williston Village as to Taft's Corners the way the other ones do, but they have the possibility to fill in other gaps. So this option, alternative D right here, is on the easternmost edge of the project area. It's where Williston Road has the intersection with Oak Hill Road and North Williston Road. And so if you've been in the area recently, you'll notice there already are sidewalks on the north and the south side of the road for most of that area, but they're not in that one specific location. So this alternative just shows making up for that one gap, particularly if you say are someone who is coming up from the south via Oak Hill Road. And you want to go to maybe one of the municipal buildings on the south side of the road, rather than having to then cross Route 2 where there's currently not a crossing, use the sidewalk there or walk along Route 2 on the south side. You could just go straight onto a sidewalk there. Also knowing that people might be approaching from the north, via North Williston Road. If there was some sort of protected crossing there, they could then use that protected crossing to get to that sidewalk on the south side of the road and then get to the municipal offices as well. So it's just addressing a missing spot in the existing infrastructure. It's very likely that because of the topography of the area, a pedestrian bridge would be needed.
This kind of gives us while we were doing this broader study between, that terminates at the east at Oak Hill Road, kind of gave an opportunity to be able to explore this, put together some costs so that the town has that, to determine if they would want to, add that gap in the sidewalk infrastructure at some point.
So, yes, sidewalk. In name only, pretty much. Some of the sidewalks that you're referring to that we have in the village might have been, Civil War era. And they're dangerous.
Yes, they are.
I'm just gonna say they're dangerous.
You certainly wouldn't like.
And to rely on those as part of this project, I think is penny wise and pound foolish.
Right. Actually, I was like mind reading because my question was going to be, what are we doing with the paths through town? Are they going to be widened out to that 8 to 10 foot width then, coming through the village?
And I ask the question differently, why did you choose not to extend the what I would consider the multi-use path through the village?
That's a good question. It was just,
I
I don't
thought
have
that
a-
was
I
the
don't
scope.
have-
In
I
fact,
don't
we're
have a
not to
good
the end of
reason for
the
that.
study area yet.
Well, yeah, we passed through the whole downtown there, the whole village. I think we're talking about the village sidewalks, right? Tim?
good.
Yeah.
Where does it?
Totally good.
They go up and down too. There's like one section over there that's flooded all the time. It's like, and they're only this wide.
yeah.
So,
Right, they can't.
yeah, we could really use some.
I don't think we explored it because I don't think we had anyone just kind of explicitly say that.
So
So
where
thank
does
you
this
for
end?
bringing that up.
The proposal?
Oak Hill Road is
Yeah.
the eastern end of that.
No, this particular one, but the other ones, where does it end?
At the village line on the west end.
Where the
Tower
where the
Lane
village
and Old Stage
sidewalks
Road.
pick up.
Yeah.
So is that by Old
All
Stage Road?
stage, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
There is a pedestrian bridge over the Ellenbrook to the right of here, still in the study area. And two
Yes.
town cemeteries beyond that. And I don't know that we would elect to spend money to build that last segment, but it would be a shame to me if the design part didn't include it so that there's a future option to do it without starting from scratch.
Yeah.
There's, if you were to continue, but I hope it goes all the way to the Federated Church and the quick stop there.
Yeah,
But if you were in the future to continue it to it while we're doing this other work as a matter of efficiency, sketch out where it would continue if we continue east of the village.
yes, because if we want this to be community friendly, we can't have somebody coming down the bike path, the new multimodal path, suddenly arriving at the sidewalks with their baby in a stroller and saying, oh, I guess I really can't go any further unless I want to have an off-road experience.
Right, yeah, I think we were just mostly looking at filling in that gap where there was no infrastructure at all, but I mean, it does make sense to investigate what it
Put
what
your
it
hiking
costs to
boots
expand
on,
that.
in full daylight.
Yeah, we can start,
Maybe
we can
some
start to
trekking
look into
poles.
that.
You're so close to the end of the existing bike path there as well. It's only one block basically from
Mhm.
Williston Road, North Williston Road to the extant path.
That's true, cut through the park, you're saying, and use the path through there.
At least at the minimum, you ought to fill that, if we're gonna go to North Williston Road,
Mhm.
we ought to fill in that one block gap and connect the two bike
Yeah, I agree with that.
Going
I
up
think
the
it should be a
state.
loop.
Yeah, going up the sidewalk.
That's a really good
Yeah,
point. They
that's
talk
a
about
great
going
idea.
North Wilson Road
Beautiful.
from then intersection up to the bike path.
Yeah.
It's under the,
About 100 yards.
or the inset.
It should be
Yeah,
continuous.
that-
I agree.
Where that.
Yeah.
Is it this,
Yes.
this yellow?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the 10-foot wide,
Great.
rec path.
While we're talking about the village, I was reminded of the comment that people had about, somebody screaming down the road and there being somebody on a tricycle, and how do you manage those competing uses? I think the Burlington bike path does a good job of having the paved portion at truly the same level as the joggers portion right next to it, to effectively widen it for many users, even not, if it's not for everybody, and it looks less industrial. So in the village, it might be more acceptable as well to have that combination in there. And I'll just add one last point on that, which is, and Matt, you probably know this as well. There's a lot in the press right now about how bikes are moving from 23 millimeters, 25, 28 millimeters to 40 millimeters as the standard, even for racers, so wider tires. So fewer people will care that much than currently do, if in some sections anyway, they need to move off to a non-paved section. Bikes are getting wider tires is the bottom line. That's a big trend right now. So, just think about that for the future as well. It's also a way to cut costs by not having to have asphalt for the entire, especially where there might be big crowds in the village, 4th of July and so forth. You can have an area that's sort of usable as a path, but doesn't look.
Yeah.
I think that kind of evolves, Stuart, because a lot of the runners don't want to be on the pavement anyway.
Right.
Because it's so harsh.
It's a benefit for
And so
runners for sure.
they
Right.
go off, just slightly off anyway, and they kind of make that path.
Yeah, but I think Burlington
just-
does it so well
yeah.
because they're truly at the same level.
Yeah.
No bikes are gonna fall off or have trouble getting back on
Right.
if you fall off, and that's done really, really well.
I'd like to second that. It's a really good suggestion in the design.
Yeah.
And I just gonna suggest, since it looked like the southern route has fewer obstacles
Yeah.
in many ways along Route 2, if you potentially look first at just staying on the south side with a multi-use path in the village, and that we upgrade the sidewalk on the north side, but we don't change it from being a sidewalk. I don't think we need a rec path on both sides. We need a rec path on one side.
That doesn't make sense.
That's a good one.
Is the size and the shape of the study area fixed?
Yes, general. Here, let me show you our kind of our last option here. So, we're trying to look at a variety of options. We also wanted to kind of look a little bit outside of the box and say, okay, well, what if we just kind of connected some of that existing infrastructure, shortened where the route people currently take on the Cross Vermont Trail, and just did an off-road route that goes past the Allenbrook School here. I think that kind of in our conversations as a team, it's maybe not something that is necessarily appropriate for this study to move forward, but could be an option to increase the town's path network in the future. So that's why we kind of kept it in here, even though we realize it's probably not going to be a preferred option. Doesn't quite address what we're looking at with that kind of point-to-point connectivity, but still wanted to present it in here as an option, again, that the town could have
Where's the
some
endpoint?
information. So here's the driveway that goes into Allenbrook School.
Yeah.
So it comes there, and then the other side, I'm not
It's
sure
in
what this
Southbridge.
road is. But Southbridge.
It's like that.
There's also a
The
big
sidewalk is
berm
very good
there,
way to
as a
go.
matter of fact, there's a big berm there because it was built thinking that
The certain
291
highway's
was
gonna be
gonna
there.
go through,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's
Or 281.
town or state land.
Yeah.
And the town does have a future plan to have a multi-use path running north-south in that right of way to connect Mountain View with
Yeah.
Route 2.
David, any further archaeological concerns on that part?
It's an archaeologically sensitive site.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is just a shortcut through Southridge, right?
Yeah.
I use the roads in Southridge to get to my home from
Governor Chittenden Road to Taft's Corners takes 20 minutes.
Mhm.
And so I have some antipathy towards being married to the existing Route 2 right of way. Proximity to fast traffic isn't gonna go away, it's gonna get worse. And there are lots of alternatives using local streets and existing intersections with Route 2 to get from the east side of town to Taft's Corners. And there's much more population density north of Route 2 than there is south. Most of what you see in the south is either conserved or it's part of a larger project. So there's virtually no potential or very limited potential for future pedestrian growth and demands on the south side of Route 2.
How do you get from Allenbrook Road to Taft's Corners? You have to go on the street, don't you?
Go on the local street.
Yeah.
I rarely see cars when I ride my bike. If I go on a secondary road or a local road.
Yeah.
So then the last thing we wanted to show was just some little bit of comparison between the two. So this graphic here is showing what we estimate the finished path incline to be. So looking at that slope, like we noted, we want to, where possible, try to minimize that. So this is looking at option A, that's the one that goes off behind the church. A2, where it continues adjacent to Route 2. The number of driveways that they would be crossing and then our estimated cost. And so right now, these are really just kind of rough cost estimates. So kind of on looking at the scale from 1 to 5 million, we estimate this is probably gonna be somewhere in the 4 to 5 million range. Again, that could change based on a number of factors, environmental constraints, material, construction costs, that sort of thing. So that's that comparison. We look at the south side of the road, the option B, there are more driveways crossed there. We estimate that the south side would likely be more expensive because we anticipate that there would be some bridges needed for crossing, so that it'd be in the right now we're estimating 5 to 6 million range. And then, as you all noted, we'll also look at that continuation from Talcott Road to Oak Hill Road for having the shared use path on one side of the road there. To look at what that additional cost would
What
be.
about there, right where Timothy comes into Route 2A, or 2 rather? Across the street on the north side, there are 2 houses right there.
Very close
And they
to the
are
road.
very close to the road. I can't even imagine putting the
You wanna go
trail
back to
through
that
there, or
side?
you'd be on someone's front doorstep.
Yeah.
So what provisions have you made if you were looking on the north side about that? I don't know how you get around it. I really don't. You'd have to go behind them or something, and that's all wet.
Right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something we need to look a little
And
bit
it's right where
closer.
that intersection is too.
Yes, yeah, that's something we need to look a little bit closer into. That's definitely one of the areas of concern and constraints that would have to be investigated more in depth because, yeah,
Cause you're
it is
showing
quite
the
a-
blue, going in front of that, and you have very little margin right there.
Yeah.
it is, that is a really, really tight pinch point.
It was interesting to see that there were 4 driveways on the south and north and 7 on the south. One of those 7 is the gas pumping, the gas
Yeah.
station,
Yeah.
Vermont gas. Pump station, that's one of them, I assume. And there's fewer road crossings on the south side. There's more driveway crossings, but fewer roads. Cause on Talcott Road, the fire station, huge driveway. I don't.
Yeah, counting the drive was kind of a way to note comparisons of basically, how many property owners are gonna be right
Right,
adjacent to there
right.
that, you would need to coordinate with.
So this does not include the scope of connecting the bike path the proposed new bike path, what exists. I think that one gentleman was saying it just takes a little bit, maybe a few hundred feet to go up.
Yeah.
Oh,
North
Williston Road. Oh, up here?
Yeah, so that is not part of the scope.
No, not right now. I think we could certainly look into that.
Yeah, it would make sense to me. I don't know.
Yeah,
what
I
the
think
incremental-
that's a great suggestion.
Where that path dead ends on the west side also was in theory to go further off towards the Allenbrook School as well. And would go to your back, would sort of echo with a substantial piece of it already completed. One of the things also I'd hesitate, I would be cautious on quoting pricing estimates even until we know the impact of the Trump tariff war on both steel and the kind of lumber products that have to go into it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
We're-
when you think of the current situation,
Yeah.
that's real. But
So
we
the-
don't know what the answer is.
Right, so the numbers we gave you right now, those are very rough ballpark, we'll try to narrow it down a little bit more. We always put a very large contingency on there, because, you know, construction costs skyrocketed after, after 2020 and even large contingencies, it was hard to keep up with what the costs actually were. We're gonna have to figure out how to take into consideration things like tariffs. I'm sure other people at our company have been thinking about that, and we'll certainly talk with them, because that's a really good point. That's kind of, we don't really know
Who
how
pays
it's
for
gonna
this,
impact
though?
it.
Is this, Route 2 is a state road. So would Williston have to pay for all of this, or does the state pay for part of it? How does that work?
So there's some different options. Probably the most common option, it would be to apply for. Help me with this, the TAB. Transportation Alternatives Program, through the Agency of Transportation. And that funds projects with, it's 80% state and federal, 20% local.
But that's right now. We don't know if that's gonna change.
Yeah, I was
Could
gonna say,
change
I don't know if, those have you guys heard of anything about how transportation funds might
early
be?
to talk about
Hi, everybody. I'm gonna just interrupt us for the sake of time, because we're gonna be limited on time, and I think the funding question is obviously a huge one and an important one. But I want to just table that for a moment and focus on the rest of this slideshow so that we can get through it and get the feedback. And the money is going to be a big deal, but I think we're not quite there yet.
If we were in, let's say, a normal environment, most common, it would be 80% grant funds, 20% local match. We're pretty much just about done anyway. These are just the estimated costs for those two other alternatives, the little link up here near Allenbrook School, the little additional sidewalk there. Just a brief overview of some of the environmental factors that we're looking at. The green is protected land. The blue is currently mapped wetlands. There certainly could still be the potential for other areas of wetlands that are not currently mapped, which is why we would recommend a further environmental study prior to moving forward with any alternative. And that just moves us into next steps, which I actually kind of started off with. So, Melinda, I believe we're gonna ultimately, the select board would choose a preferred alternative, which doesn't have to be done directly from what we showed you today. We can add some modifications and then we would refine that alternative.
Yeah, that's not right.
I have a question that's out of scope, or maybe it's more of a comment for future consideration, but there's interest in burying the power lines in the village. They're a problem in a lot of ways, not just aesthetically. But it's prohibitively expensive. So what I wondered is if we're putting a multi-use path on one side of Route 2 through the village, if you were to bury all the utilities, not take the power lines down now, but put all the conduits in,
Hmm.
would there be an efficiency to in the future, being able to get the utilities underground?
Maybe, I don't know enough about that, but it's.
I realize it's not in the scope.
Yeah, it's
but
certainly
it's,
worth considering anytime you can make efficiencies.
Have you been involved in other projects like this?
We have, yes.
Were you involved in the bike path up at Stone?
No, I was not involved in that.
Okay.
I'm certainly aware of it. Quite a bit, did an awesome tour and conversation about it this last fall.
Pardon me, June.
Troublemaker.
Any other questions or comments? Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to add that, I don't know if I missed the step where we talked about the purpose of this path, but, recreation seems to be in everyone, everyone's interested in that aspect, but I know the town of Williston has goals to have people commute and reduce vehicle miles traveled. And one thing I just want to bring up is that a path that deviates from the roadway goes into the woods or the thicket at night, people might not feel comfortable getting that far away from sightlines. So depending on the purpose of this project, and we want to accommodate, people who are actually using this for transportation and not just fun. Just like to bring that up.
That's a really good point. Thank you for raising that.
That's an excellent point, and I do want to, and you're right, we did not start with that, but I think it is really important that one of the things that the commission has thought about a lot is that the folks did a really nice job mapping sort of the resources along the way, but so many of Williston's resources are in the village, right? The library, the town offices, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And yet a lot of our residential and housing, especially that's being built now, is concentrated in Taft's Corners and in some of the developments along the way. And the fact that right now you can't get from one to the other efficiently, not by car, is a problem from, just general commuter and access. It's an equity issue, and it's an environmental issue that you can't do that not by car. So there's a lot of issues with sort of setting the town up in that manner and leaving it in that manner without creating real true access between the two. So it's just something that has been on our minds a lot, not to mention the many, many, many years of people saying they want it, which is also incredibly important.
I just wanted to add a comment, expressing appreciation. I thought that it's a tremendously thoughtful approach that you've all taken to this, and clearly heard a lot of what's been said. And, if we're talking about tweaking some of these things, that's great, but in general, wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I agree, and if this is multimodal, we need to bear in mind, for example, that tonight's evening news launched with yet another potential cutback in GMT bus service. In the last couple of years, we've lost the town loop route. We lost the 10 on weekends up to Essex Junction. Now it's threatened entirely.
Yeah, it's going away entirely.
Those are assets that can go very easily, but if we build a path and do it right, it's not something that the whims of Washington or fanatics can take away from us. And I congratulate you also on a very thoughtful study.
Thank you.
Also, back especially in 1999, Jeff and Jim and I were on a committee that redid the transportation part of the town plan. And one of the things we did was we did a survey of the whole town. And almost every single one that came back had on there that they really would like to see a connection between the village and Taft Corners. And that's long before all of the development that's been done and everything. So I know there's a lot of support for that, and a safety factor too.
One thing that we didn't mention that we certainly could look into as well are, we don't necessarily have to have an alternative that's entirely on the south side or entirely on the north side. There could be an appropriate location where it starts along the south side and then there's a crossing and then goes to the north side that maybe helps you avoid, some of, bridges or some of those properties, maybe crossing the fire station or those two properties that were mentioned that are pretty close to the road. So that's something that we can look at as well.
Could you put any additional parking? I'm just thinking about people who are out of the village and out of the neighborhoods. But, hey, I live way out on Oak Hill, let's say, and I'd like to come down and go biking. Where will these people who are gonna be flocking to this brand new path be parking their vehicles? Just a thought.
Parking lot back.
Yeah, I haven't explored that, but good question.
What are your next steps and in what anticipated timeframe?
So we're hoping to have a refined preferred alternative by late spring, so be end of May or early June. We're wrapping up the project by the end of June is our schedule, so the end of June will be when we're finishing this.
If I could answer Barbara a little bit, the community parking that in off-season, the school parking, like in the summer, the school parking, and off business hours, the parking behind the town hall are all possibilities in addition to the church. And I just want to answer that fellow's question a little bit, that the planning commission has envisaged and received feedback that if somebody lives in Taft Corners area and doesn't have a car, which is the intent of that area with density and public transportation, et cetera, they should be able to get to the town office to get their dog license or whatever, or go to the library on foot or on bike or on a motorized bike or however they could. Similarly, if you live in Whitney Hill or in the Commons or anywhere around the village, it would be nice to be able to go shopping without having to travel on a state highway. And the state highway work a few years ago, they gave us bike lanes, has made it possible for people like me or commuters to move more readily, but it has not solved the problem for people who are for children or people with any other reason that they wouldn't want to be right on the highway.
And pedestrians.
And pedestrians, of course, yes.
Which people, of course, still use it.
People do walk
As a
along that.
all the time. Which shows.
Yes, Marshall just saw at least 3 people on his way.
There you go.
Tonight. Yeah.
Is there still specific feedback that you're looking to collect? And if so, is there an avenue that should be provided to you?
Yeah, I think so. We're going to meet with CCRPC, Melinda and Matt again, I think discuss how we want to go about that. If there are some things that we want to tweak or adjust, such as looking at extending the multi-use path all the way through the village. And then we anticipate them putting together a public survey to be able to get more direct feedback from folks. But want to be able to, want to review what we heard tonight as a group first, and then we'll move forward with that.
And all those images are online, accessible right now for us to look at.
They're on the planning commission meeting page, this March 18th meeting page.
We've got a question online. Go ahead, Jen. Oh, Emily, you might have to unmute her.
Jen, you should be able to unmute. There you
go. Okay, sorry about that. So I'm a parent of a child with a developmental disability, and I'm just going to point out here, this is not an easy solution for you to do, but I want to thank you for putting out there a lot of options for consideration. For many of our kids, we've been working with the town trying to find housing. And I think just to keep in mind, I'm sure this is true of children as multi-use path. The closer we are to that road, I think there's greater concern that somebody also just mentioned regarding safety and overall health of those that are traveling on that road, especially given the speed on that road. And I worry about the number of crossings going across too. So just would ask people to kind of keep that in mind too as you go forward. And I'm grateful that we do have that other option today, which you call the cross trail or whatever. But I guess just want to put that out there because many of these kids don't drive and are looking for a way to get from, if they live in, let's say, the village, how to get to shopping and stuff for themselves, that it's a little further away. So just another group of the population that is interested in what's going to go on here. And I appreciate all that you've done and a lot of good input and suggestions along the way. So thank you.
Thank you. Anything
Awesome.
else? Okay. I know
Thank
the
you
planning
so
commission
much,
still
you
has-
guys. I really, really appreciate it. I personally am incredibly excited about trying to move this forward. Keep making forward momentum and progress.
Amy, would you hit the light switch over there? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for
So
coming.
much.
Thank you.
All right. Well, folks, let me know and people, so everybody is obviously welcome to stay, but we're gonna move on to other business.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, I have to go back, take a look at the, really, since I've been on that path, I can vaguely, everybody was talking about.
And somebody in the room, we do actually have to move on to other things, so if folks could take their conversations outside of the room. All right, can planning commission members hear me? We're gonna keep going with our meeting.
1 second. Conversations to move out to the hallway. We're actually having the rest of our meeting now. I know. That's going to be back. At least a better way.
Okay, it looks like we've got mostly just commission members now. Is that true?
Almost. I appreciate it. It's very important. Really along that area that we're talking
All right. So I'm gonna rearrange the agenda a tiny bit just because we are running behind, which is fine. That was important. But I want to make sure we get to two things, to the commission leadership and also to the town plan. So just staff, I think we're gonna bump the minutes and the neighboring communities till the end. And if we get to them, great. And if we don't, we can do them another time. So commission leadership, we lost Emily, or Ellie, we did not lose Emily. Emily's still here. Lost Ellie to the select board, and we're very excited for her to be there. But of course, now that she was my co-chair, and so we need to decide as a group to what the next steps are. And so can Emily or Matt, can you give us the choices?
Right.
Who's got their volume on?
I'm not in Zoom. So not me. I don't think it
Matters.
It was me. I'm sorry.
Awesome.
Can I say first that don't we usually reorganize so that we have our things set for July 1st, so we with the fiscal year.
Yeah.
So are we just making a 2-month decision or a 3-month decision at most?
I think so, Chapin. I think we should still hold the normal process in July.
And we just leave it as it is.
So to me, the big question, Shayla, is whether you're okay being alone as chair
For a few months.
until July 1st.
I am totally fine with that. But I did not want to assume that. And Hannah, I will need to lean on you more. Because Ellie is not around, as long as that's okay with you.
That's the traditional vice chair role.
Yeah.
Yeah. To fill in when the chair.
I haven't done much as a vice chair, so
there you go.
Yeah,
There you go. I'm gonna get you better at chasing people out of the room. No. No, okay. So I'm okay doing that, especially with Hannah being okay, sort of stepping into a little bit more of the work because Ellie's gone. But again, I did not want to assume that given that Ellie left.
So I move that we don't fill the co-chair role and we keep our current officers until we reorganize in May or June.
Second that.
All those in favor?
And that's option 2 there, but
All right, any opposed? Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys for looking at that. Okay. The next really important thing is the town plan and how we move that forward.
Just try to make this clear. Okay. Here is the draft adoption timeline. It looks a little scary, but I think it's doable, right?
yes.
Yes.
Right. Yes. Totally doable.
Okay. So basically, staff has some work to do between now and April 1st. We're going to get the final comments from departments. We're going to edit the draft objective strategies and actions and begin assembling rough chapters. And then April 1st, we have slated a joint meeting with the select board and planning commission to review those updated objective strategies and actions. And then just, maybe throw up a couple of the full chapters, and take a look at those. And then staff is going to work on completing those full chapters and assembling the document between April 1st and April 15th. And then on April 15th, the planning commission would review the complete draft and the report, make any final changes before directing staff to warn a public hearing, and then vote to warn a hearing for May 20th. That would be the first public hearing. And then we'll do all the required warnings for that. Then there's a little bit of overlap where we have another joint meeting with the select board on May 6th. We present that PC warn document to the select board for discussion and their decision to hold an informational meeting. So there's a little bit of, back and forth overlap, but I think it'll be okay. And then on May 20th is the planning commission public hearing. The select board has their informational meeting on June 3rd, and they vote to warn a public hearing. And then July 15th, the select board has the first public hearing. August 19th, the select board has the second public hearing and hopefully votes to adopt.
I have a question back at the April 1st meeting. Do we really need to meet with the select board at that point? Or it says here that the, somewhere didn't it say that the staff would, April 1,
presentation by staff to both.
Yeah,
bodies.
so if
Yeah.
staff is gonna present to both bodies, I almost feel like we don't need to sit through the select board hearing the same thing that we already know. Or is there a new presentation that we're gonna wanna hear then, I guess?
Yeah, I think that's a new
Okay, okay.
presentation, right?
Well,
Or at least updates.
I think, okay. Yeah, so staff will have worked on updating the objective strategies and actions before that, and you will not have had a chance to see that like in, in person at a meeting or just
Right.
take a look.
What I
at it.
worry is if we are then tempted to comment on it with our in-depth knowledge already what came before, and for them, it's the first time they're seeing it,
Yeah,
we'll just have to hold our tongues and
Yeah, I think Chapin, it's more that we want to be there when they see it so that we can answer their questions.
okay.
I think we need to kind of hang on to our own stuff for afterward or whatever, give it to staff. Because I think my concern, my desire to have that be together is that I think it's important. It's just so much to digest for the select board because they haven't been part of the process. And I really want the planning commission to kind of be supporting both the select board and the staff and supporting the select board and figuring out what this means and what it is and what it isn't, and making sure we also really fully understand what their concerns are, so that we understand what the, sort of barriers and opportunities are in moving the whole thing forward. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I see it less as a time for us to provide lots of feedback to staff, and more of a time for us to kind of like see where the select board is and try to make sure that their questions are answered and that they have the information they need.
I think the meeting to last whole 2-3 hours or so, right? Because it's go through everything.
well, also keep in mind that on April 1st is our bylaw hearing too, so. I don't think this is. I think the intention is to keep it to about a half hour, 45 minutes.
How will that half hour, 45 minutes be different than the, like, kind of what we just had? Like, it, to Shayla's point, like, it's so much information that, like, what are we expecting to present to them that's different than what we did in a way that, like, is, is productive over, like.
Yeah, I think what we want to present is that we've addressed the comments that people, that we got a lot of comments in the objectives and strategies and actions, so I think we wanna tell them, like, this is how we address those comments.
Like, share the major changes.
Yeah.
Right, I think there's gonna be a lot of simplification and consolidation where grouping things will be grouped in like things. Like one of the big comments was there's like 200 items in here. And a lot of that can be reduced down when we find those similarities. We'll probably use a couple key case studies of, a particular theme and show, here's where we consolidated for transportation or for public facilities, that kind of thing. And then solicit any new feedback from them, but it definitely would be similar to the last conversation, but I think way more focused now that everybody's had a couple of times to look at the document. And have one-on-one meetings with, Shayla's been meeting with some of the select board members, we've been meeting with department heads, that kind of thing.
One change that the staff did come up with, which is, I think, going to be really helpful specifically for the select board, for everyone, but I think for the select board in a very clear way, is using specific action words. So really, and defining them so that, Matt a million years ago said, we're not going to use consider, because that's just like, what does that even mean? Like, I thought about it at lunch. But now we're going to even like get more clear. And that was something that came out of some of those conversations with the select board members who are, interested in this. Is like, what am I committing to? What am I saying I'm going to do here? Is it fund this thing? Is it, send this to the voters, or is it like evaluate it, which means like look into it, research it, and write the department head will write a like 2-page memo, or, so trying to really specify that, I think will help people kind of wrap their heads around the scope of the whole thing.
Yeah, we were working on that, especially the funding definition, making it really clear that for some of those bigger picture items, it's bring it to the voters for a major budget decision, whether that's a bond vote, or some other funding mechanism.
Right, but we're committing here to saying we will ask voters directly that way versus just saying like, oh, that's expensive, like doesn't fit in the budget, we're not going to do it. No, we're saying, okay, that's too big for the budget, and so then it's going to go to bond, and the voters are going to get to choose.
I have felt not up to the task through this whole process, and I feel much more capable of commenting on drafts than on creating drafts. And so I really appreciate what the staff has done. All of you have done amazing work. And I feel as though the place that I can be helpful is in making specific comments on the next draft. So I want to figure out how to best to do that.
So Chapin, are you thinking, sorry, I was trying to read Melinda's table here and think what you're saying. Are you, if like you were given, if we see the full draft chapters between April 1 and the 15th and provide our feedback, that we can review the feedback on the 15th, does that feel doable to you?
I would like to be able to comment around April 1st, and if we don't do it at that meeting, then before or after it.
But I don't think they're going to have all of the full. So Melinda and Emily, it doesn't look like you will have the full chapters.
Right, we won't have the full chapters until April 15th, and there's a little bit of wiggle room for very minor things. On April 15th, you'll vote to warn the public hearing, and we have to have stuff on the website by May 1st.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of wiggle room, and that might be a good spot for Chapin, who's good at catching all of my grammatical misstatements and helping with some of the verbiage, as well as some of the bigger picture comments. We'll have reviewed all of the full chapters. We'll talk about them on April 15th. And then between April 15th and May 1st, staff is going to do a little bit of polishing so that highly public draft is ready to go.
Right. And I think what I'm trying to figure out is, so Chapin, and I don't think April 1st is when you will have been able, like you won't have been able to read something new in its entirety before then. Like that's when we're going to get the feedback on like what were the changes. And so I think then, and correct me if I'm wrong, Melinda and Emily, then that thing gets compiled between the 1st and the 15th. So I think the question is, can we make some space in there for
I think I can work with staff on that, because whatever is going to be presented to the select board is a draft that I would be happy, even if it's incomplete, I'd be happy to look at it in pieces. Having been through the whole thing in the last month, looking at a piece is not a problem. And I don't want to get in the way. And I agree with your view that it will mostly be listening or answering questions if we're meeting with the select board. And I think that's fine. I'd just like to find a time before or after or both to be constructive.
I definitely want you to have that. And I'm just trying to think, I think it's just going to be after that, you're going to have more meat to look at. Right. Trying to figure out.
Because,
I guess what I worry about is a select board member making a comment like, well, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? And it's something that has been tweaked and that I might have had a reaction to, and then I'm caught off guard. So it feels weird to have the select board get something that we haven't reviewed, even if we just review it privately. And of course, the select board, they publish their agenda ahead of time, I assume with links. So, yeah.
Right.
Right, but I'm just thinking, I think we're mixing stuff up though, Chapin. On the first is not a review of a draft. On the first is a review of the comments that everybody provided, the select board, us, other people, the departments, right? And what those comments were and how staff incorporated them.
Okay.
So,
right? Do I have that right, Melinda? It's not here's a new draft.
it's, let's see, so we will review a redlined draft of the objectives, strategies and actions. And we may have a full chapter or two, which will not be redlined. That'll be like a
clean
version of, some of those full chapters, but I can't guarantee we're gonna have very many of those done by then. It's just, it's a tight timeline, for sure.
I mean, another option, if people want to, and I talked to Matt about this because and I'm like, and because the timeline is so tight, is we can add a meeting next week.
I don't think so. And now that I hear the way you want to do it, I'll check in with Emily. If you haven't thrown away what I gave you, I think I should type those in.
So I think the place where considering adding a meeting might work would be April 29th. April's a 5 Tuesday month. And that's where we have to have something on the website for that May 1st. So it would be very close to being done, if not being done for the website. And that would get you guys all polished up for that select board meeting on May 6th. So everything that's happening on April 1st and April 15th is very much a work in progress, a dialogue on the objective strategies and actions where, in the track changes redlined. And that conversation on May 6th is gonna be, the wheels are in motion on the hearing informational session. So I think being ready to say, okay, here's the comments that we heard over April 1st, April 15th in the February meeting. And now May 6th, you guys, that's where you'll really want to be able to be clear on what has changed, where have you been responsive to those bigger comments from the select board. And we can add that to tentatively putting an extra meeting on April 29th, if that would be helpful.
I think we might want it. This is a big step. Having it go to-
I would lean towards, I'd sort of, I would lean towards adding one. And then if we get if we get through that April 15th meeting and it's like, no big deal, we're all good, maybe we cancel it. But I think it's a lot. It's a lot to do in this timeline. So if folks are okay with that, I think we add it on the 29th of April.
So we
Especially hearing your
pencil in for
concern, Chapin, because I
29.
really want people to have time to comment. Sorry, go ahead.
We pencil in on 29, then on the 15th, we make a decision whether we should cancel or we should proceed.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, pencil in the 29th.
And then we'll decide on the
And
15th.
decide on the 15th if we can skip it or not.
Do I need a motion for that, Emily, or is that just scheduling?
That's just scheduling, so we can do it by consensus. What's not included on this schedule, but we're also working on in the background is once it's in the Observer on the 21st for that that Thursday, May 1st paper. We're also thinking about public events, so taking it on a road show. That Saturday, May 3rd is Town Fair Green Up Day, so this is gonna be its public Saturday morning debut. We're gonna be on a library trustees agenda. We're gonna be at a senior lunch, I believe, on May 13th. hopefully gonna be able to try to get with Rotary. So I'm putting out all these feelers and we're hoping to do a road show in May. That was one major point from the select board is the planning commission and select board hearings are gonna be in the summertime. And so we want to do a big blast, this documents out, and get it to the public before the school season or the school year wraps up. And that might be a good opportunity as well for planning commission members to interface with the community and come speak about the town plan at some of those events. So stay tuned for that as well.
Chapin, does that, I just want to make sure
Sounds
you're,
like a good plan.
okay, anyone, any other comments on the both the process? A, clarity or comments or questions about the process, and B, timeline. Okay, I want to just like take a minute to recognize that is a lot of work. Obviously, it's a ton of work for staff, and we really, really, really appreciate that. It's also a lot of work as a planning commission member that is not paid. So I really appreciate everybody doing it. It takes a long time to get through the whole thing, and it's more than our normal agenda load. So thank you to everybody for doing it. It's obviously very important. But you know, you get to page whatever on that document here, I start to cross. So I really, really appreciate folks doing it. And thank you again. I really, the table, guys, the way that you organize it, Melinda and Emily, like that was a lifesaver. I don't know how we would have done it.
If it gets passed on August 19th, then we can not have a planning commission meeting the Tuesday after Labor Day.
Oh, see? Brilliant.
We can go out for beers.
That's a carol there.
Okay, so I feel like those were my two really big things, and we still have 15 minutes before 9. So do we want to do the minutes? Oh, sorry, was somebody saying something?
No, I was just gonna say, do you want to do the minutes and?
Yeah, minutes next.
Okay.
I'll move we adopt the minutes.
Okay.
By the way, what's the password?
I made.
05495.
This is
This is it.
yeah. Yeah, minutes look good. I made one really minor change, I think. But it's a short meeting. Oh, I did have a question. That's okay. It said Chapin made a statement about the concern of high strength waste. Like that, I added the words "that from" like breweries. And then a vestige of a problem in the past. So I was like, what does that mean?
So let me explain it, because maybe we should make it clear that what happened is we had some breweries come online, and so did Essex Junction in Essex Town. And then it impaired the functioning of the the water resources recovery facility in Essex Junction, to use the correct term. And then so we should be aware of that potential problem with different sources. But since then, breweries have been asked to do pre-treatment. And so I think it's a vestige of that. But there's another factor, which is the upgrades that were made to the sewage treatment plant to make it more effective also slowed it down in how much it could process a day from their intended, whatever. So I just, my comment was more that there are other factors besides the number of hookups that we sell that affect how the sewage treatment plant is doing. And that was my only comment, is that there are other factors. So I don't know. I almost would drop that from the minutes, that sentence completely. Do people feel that it's
from Chapin made a statement?
I would just take it out unless people think it's important to have there, but I was just trying to highlight that it wasn't just about hookups. Does anybody object if we take it out?
No.
Okay. Cause I think it's better than trying to explain it.
Right, any other edits?
I'm just realizing, you made the motion at the beginning, Chapin, but we didn't. Early, and
Yeah,
then we were like, no, we should have discussion, so actually, I think this, Chapin made the motion needs to move after. Cause the last paragraph of the section is the PC agreed to move forward with the proposed changes. I think we made the motion and transmitted it then after discussion. I think this is out of order.
Okay.
So it just needs to move down.
yeah. In the long run, I think either's okay. The
Yeah.
way some boards do things, you have to make a motion and get it open, a motion in a second in order to start discussion is the way some things work.
Oh.
But you're right that the way we typically work is we discuss first.
That's not in Shayla's rules of order. I've only learned it from you all, so you only have yourselves to blame.
Having made the motion to adopt the minutes as amended, I'll say as amended.
I'll second the
As they
amended.
stand.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Right, opposed? All right. Oh my gosh, you guys, I forgot.
The
I think we
Heinsberg,
already discussed, but I just wanted to make sure it was very clear to everyone that Mickey, who was our alternate, is now our permanent member, and we are looking for a new alternate. So I can't remember if we had already talked about that. I can't remember where we already talked about that. He already said yes. So we're gonna use that as our process going forward with this alternate, which is that when somebody leaves, the person can choose, if they really just want to only remain an alternate, that's fine, but he has agreed to come on as a permanent member. And I'm sorry if we didn't talk about that. Can't remember where
I thought we did, at least hypothetically, if not.
Is
No.
the select board make that decision or?
I don't know, I think I'm supposed to get some sort of appointment, I think maybe you could check with.
Yeah, we'll have to touch
Right.
base, because I think that might be something that the select board
they have
has
to
to
vote
do.
on. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
great.
Either that.
So
or
the chair could make a recommendation to the select board.
We'll pass that along as a recommendation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I like to just, okay, great. That's awesome. And thank you. Thank you.
Heinsberg, it looks as though there's quite a bit behind that rezoning. It looked like there's a lot of controversy, a lot of issues. And my question for staff is any of it something that we care about?
Some controversy for us, potentially.
I don't think so.
Sure, let's move on to that. So we're done with the minutes. Do we lose Matt at some point, or is this?
Yeah.
He's over at select board.
Yeah, he's still going.
And I must admit that I have not laid eyes on this yet. Bad.
I've tried to get through, it's just like I have no background or context in their different districts and it was totally.
You want to look at the report?
Yeah,
Let's do
Yeah,
that.
the report goes into more detail.
but it's so much about rezoning, they're getting rid of one district and redoing two others, and that the details aren't in here that about what is allowed and not allowed in each of the new districts, to me.
They need a map in here.
Well, it references a map, which we're not seeing, but
yeah, so the major is just the rezoning. Oops.
It looks like the McCoys and the who's that? Hatfields and McCoys had a problem, and this was the solution to it, or else somebody just wanted to move things around.
Do we need to do this tonight? Where is it? Where's the thing about what is happening?
I think that was just informational from the neighboring, we always have like, years and years ago, we asked Matt to kind of fill us in on what was going on in neighboring towns.
And it's also statutorily required that they notice.
Right, they have to notify
Neighboring
us,
towns.
and so then it's helpful if we've kind of just seen, is it going to affect Williston?
It looks like though the public meeting, like if we had comments, the public meeting is the 26th. Sure that won't be the last time for comments. I'm just wondering if we can hold it and do it next meeting in case Matt had any concerns.
Yeah, and I think this document is a list of changes, not the full.
No, it is it is a list. It's not.
Right, and so it's really scattered trying to understand it.
Hard to read.
Okay, so.
Okay, so let's
staff
hold
brings
it.
it back to
Let's
us.
just see if next meeting, maybe just put something on the agenda to say, were there staff concerns about this that Matt wanted to bring up, and if not, we will serve as notified. Okay. Phew.
Upcoming.
Minutes. You didn't need to kick everybody out so fast.
We should briefly review the upcoming meetings and events.
Right.
The first two are our meetings.
Yes, and then May 3rd Town Fair on Green Up Day. And then May.
The rest were all in that table. Yeah.
Emily, can you email the link?
The maps?
The link to the maps, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Because I'm not on a device that I can capture that.
So, and we should maybe add to the agenda for April 15th that we're going to consider a April 29th.
29th. That's a good point. Why does Heinsberg have such a fancy website?
In comparison to what?
I won't say. Okay.
Ours is historic. It's a protected class now. We can't change it.
I love it.
I was wondering what the issue was.
Well, is that it then?
Sorry, I'm looking at the map and it does not look like it abuts any Williston land that changed.
St. George. Yeah.
Right, it's primarily in their core area.
And it extends up towards St. George, doesn't it, from the rating of it? Anyway.
You want me to bring
No.
it up?
No, it doesn't look like it goes. It doesn't go above CVU Road.
Oh. Then I didn't understand it.
I think that's what the map looks like.
Okay. Cool. I move we adjourn.
Yeah.
Second. All right, thanks
Thank you.
everybody. I really
Thank
appreciate
you. I
it.
know it's hard to do remotely too. so.
Wow. I was just
That's
worried
all.
about the timing, so that was my only.
Yeah, no, it's good.
All right. Thanks, Julie.
Bye, guys.
See ya.
There was a good turnout.